Welcome back to All Things Creepy. I'm your host, Micah James. And before we really head into this episode, I want to acknowledge the audio yet again. This time it's because the wire that connects my microphone to my computer crapped out on me. So I'm just waiting for a new one to come in, and I should be getting one by Monday. So by next week, I'll definitely have, better audio once it comes in, like I said. So the way that Jeff the Killer Part 2 is going to run down, we're going to start by kind of going back over the story. I'll be going into my more detailed thoughts about whether I think this story holds up and kind of just some plot holes and more of my thoughts on this story, kind of more dissection to that. Then we're going to move on to the spin-offs as well, and then kind of finish off with the mystery of the photo that came with it, because no one can necessarily fully agree on where the photo comes from. So with all that being said, let's take a deeper dive into the story. So I know I touched on it last week, but I personally don't think that this story necessarily holds up per se. It holds up in the nostalgia factor 1,000%. It's one of the classics. You can't have a discussion about creepypasta without at least bringing up Jeff the Killer. So in that sense, it 100% holds up. But in terms of storytelling, it really does not. But then on the other side, I can see how as a child this terrified me, because it does. When I initially read this in 2012, I was 13 years old or something like that, 14, 15, whatever. And it reads like someone who is right around my age, or even maybe possibly even a little younger, wrote it. So for a child, yes, this story can be pretty scary. But as far as how it holds up now, the way it starts, excerpt from a local newspaper. Ominous unknown killer is still at large. No newspaper that I know of would use the word ominous. More than likely, they would say unknown killers still at large. So right off the bat, it kind of just doesn't open terribly great. But again, this is looking at it at a very critical angle. The excerpt that they chose from it, a boy is talking about his experience with Jeff the Killer. But the thing is, it does not read like a child. Maybe a 16, 17-year-old might speak like this, but it almost feels like this kid who had to run in with the killer was maybe between the ages of 7 and 10. And the kid himself uses the word ominous. And unless the kid just learned the word, I don't know many 7 to 10-year-olds who will use ominous in a day-to-day level, right? All right, so after the whole newspaper clip, we are introduced to Jeff and his family. We are just introduced to Jeff and Lou at the very start. We just know that they're brothers. And we're not entirely sure who's older and who's younger. We just know that they're siblings. And we also know that Jeff's dad got a promotion which required them to move to a fancy neighborhood. It even says here, Jeff and his brother Lou couldn't complain though. A new, better house. What was not to love? And then as they're unpacking, their neighbors come by, and we get the name of the neighbor, Barbara, and Billy, Barbara's kid. But you don't have to remember those names, because yes, they kind of show up again, but not necessarily by name. Then we get the only mention of Jeff's parents' names, Margaret and Peter. From my memory, and from just quickly glancing at the story, that is the only mention we get of their names. It is never brought back up. From here on out, they're just known as Jeff's mom, Jeff's dad, his mom and dad, that kind of thing. Then next, we're introduced to the school bullies, Randy, Troy, and Keith. And we are also introduced to Jeff's feeling. We're not entirely sure what this feeling is initially. It's just described as he got a feeling. And I know for a fact I mentioned this in last week's episode, but Wendigoon and Meat Canyon described it really well in their episode of Creepcast, and it's a feeling. When I heard them say that, and then I read this back for my episode, I couldn't help but think of that one scene in SpongeBob, that smell, that smelly smell, the smelly smell that smells smelly. And that is just like such a perfect way to describe this feeling. Later on, we do learn that this feeling that Jeff was feeling was just the feeling of wanting to hurt people. And that is you do kind of get that feeling with when Jeff just absolutely demolishes Randy, Keith, and Troy. And then they kind of run away from the scene. Lou and Jeff run away from the scene after the bullies are down when the bus comes around. You get a time jump kind of after school. They're already home, Jeff and Lou. And, oh, by the way, we do get the age of Jeff, and Jeff is 13, but again, we still don't know what Lou's age is. They could be twins. Jeff could be older. It doesn't really come up, like I said. But then the police come and they're questioning Jeff about what happened. And Jeff admits, hey, I did it. And the police officers that are there are just okay, that's 1 year in juvie. Let's go. And that's something that even as a kid kind of bugged me. And that was just police don't, they bring people to jail, but mostly for holding. They don't, it's just the plot hole of why are you sending Jeff or saying that Jeff is going to go to juvie without a trial or anything like that, right? With no talk to lawyers or anything like that. But that's when Lou comes down and Lou says, no, I did it. Here's the weapon. And then they bring Lou to juvie and the sentence is for 1 year. And Jeff tries to tell everyone no, Lou, don't lie. It was me. You know it was me. Jeff tries to convince everyone hey, Lou, please don't lie for me. You know I did it. It is me who should be going to jail. Why are you taking the fall for me? But Lou is just nope, here's the weapon. Here you go. I did it. And so they bring Lou to juvie. And then it's time for Billy's party, but it seems like Billy is a lot younger than Jeff, and Jeff really doesn't want to go. He ends up playing with the other kids, and he finds out he's having fun despite the kids being younger than him. And then the bullies, Troy, Keith, and Randy, come to the party uninvited. They, with their skateboards, jump over the fence of this house on their skateboards, at least I'm picturing skateboards, and start beating up Jeff. And two of the kids have guns, which didn't make sense to me. And all of these parents are there and they don't think to try to call the police, right? And Jeff ends up killing two of them. Keith is the only one left, and Jeff and Keith kind of have at it, and then when they're inside, they get drenched in bleach, and both scream at that because I guess it gets in their eyes and stuff. And then Jeff ends up getting alcohol on him, vodka specifically, and Keith starts laughing, lights Jeff on fire. And he's in the hospital. Jeff is in the hospital. You find out that Keith admitted they instigated what happened at the bus stop, and just kind of admitted to everything. And so they're letting Lou out early. And then his whole family, Lou, his parents, they're at the hospital for his unveiling. His mom screams at the sight of him. Lou's like trying to tell him, Jeff, it's not that bad. It's really not. And Jeff loves it. He's like laughing. He's kind of going crazy. And Jeff's mom says, Doctor, said Jeff's mom, is my son all right? You know, in the head? Oh yes, this behavior is typical for patients that have taken very large amounts of painkillers. If his behavior doesn't change in a few weeks, bring him back here and we'll give him a psychological test. And they bring him home, and this is like their last night of life. Jeff burns off his eyelids. He cut his mouth into like this smile, which like in real life, again, I'm pretty sure a kid wrote this, so like he probably didn't know the name of it, but like similar to like a Glasgow smile. It's like, if you know the story of the Black Dahlia, that's what a Glasgow smile is. And then like he ends up killing his mom and dad, and we are not entirely sure. It's just like we're not entirely sure what happens to Lou. Like the last 2 paragraphs read, his brother Lou woke up, startled by some noise. He didn't hear anything else, so he just shut his eyes and tried to go back to sleep. As he was on the border of slumber, he got the strangest feeling that someone was watching him. He looked up before Jeff's hand covered his mouth. He slowly raised the knife, ready to plunge it into Lou. Lou thrashed here and there, trying to escape Jeff's grip. Shh, Jeff said, just go to sleep. So yeah, we're not entirely sure what happened to Lou. A lot of people kind of agree that like Lou did die after his encounter with his brother. And yeah, I mean, like that's the infamous, or not infamous, that's the famous version. That's the most well-known version of Jeff the Killer. That being said, it is not necessarily the initial iteration of this story. A YouTuber named Cesier uploaded a video called Jeff the Killer Original Story, and it was uploaded on YouTube, I believe YouTube, before the famous story was uploaded. And this same person, Cesier, claims to be the author of the real story. And he also claims that all others are fake, including the famous creepypasta. So, I mean, like, who knows? Like, which one is actually, like, the true original? That's kind of much like the picture associated with Jeff the Killer. It can be kind of debated because it's, like, I'm not entirely... I couldn't even find, like, an original upload for Cesier's video. I found a re-upload, which if I can find it again, I'll link it in the show notes. But yeah, I couldn't find an original upload. The re-upload was from 2015. Again, if I can find it, I'll link it in the show notes. Because I couldn't find the original, I can't confirm nor deny what Cesier said was true. Now, there are spin-offs. There are a lot of them, but I'm going to be talking about 3 of the most famous ones. There's Jane the Killer. In this story, Jeff is Jane's worst enemy and vice versa. She even tries killing people before he does. The story was originally titled Jane's Letter and was written by a DeviantArt user by the name of Fear of the Black Wolf. Jane quickly becomes a fan favorite, and there's been a lot of fan art of her as well. There was even an expansion on her story that gives her more of a backstory, as well as her motivation for wanting to kill Jeff. And I think there's also like one that's like Jeff versus Jane, and they have at it. I remember reading that like years ago, but I can't remember exactly what happens in it beyond the basics. Then there's Homicidal Lou. In the original, like, famous creepypasta, it's not directly stated whether Lou was killed or not, like I mentioned. This spin-off assumes that Lou survives his attack by his brother. Also in this story, he becomes a serial killer himself with a split personality. Lou is also debating whether or not he should kill Jeff or spare his brother. And then finally, the other famous one is Jeff the Killer Reboot. There's a reboot to the original like not video version. And it seems to stay pretty true to the 2012 one. Like it has the same characters. Jeff gets that feeling and all of that. However, there are two major differences. That is of Jeff's face and the fact that we get the brothers' ages. Jeff is 15 and Lou is 14, officially making Jeff older. And what I meant by Jeff's face is just like how he ended up getting burned and like how his eyes kind of became the way they were and all of that. Now, there is the fact of the image. There's an image that goes along with it. Actually, there are two different photos and therefore two main theories as to where this image came from. If I'm able to find both versions of the picture, which I'm pretty sure I can, I'll post them on my Instagram and Threads account. But the first appearance of Jeff on the web, he has a less distorted smile, but the pictures still looked pretty similar to what we know today. The first widely acknowledged post of the picture came up on a Japanese website called fileman.n1e.jp. It was posted by an anonymous user on July 24th, 2005, with a title that translates to English to "The Fear of Summer Nights," in a description that read, again, roughly translated, "a certain celebrity before plastic surgery." Comments on the post stated that other users have seen the image on other sites, so it's possible that the image has origins earlier than July of 2005. This version of the picture would later make its rounds on other sites as well. The second and arguably more famous version of the image first appeared on a website called pya.cc on November 16th, 2005 by a user called Omega Vault. This is the one I shared on my Instagram last week. It is, like I said, probably the most well-known version. So I said that these were the theories. I misspoke, obviously, but those were the two variations. There's actually three major theories as to where this image came from, or at least the original image came from. The first one is, for the most part, has kind of been proven to be like mostly a hoax. So for a while, it was believed that it was a photoshopped picture of a young woman by the name of Katie Robinson. The picture came from a 2008 4chan post. It was also said that Katie committed suicide after being cyberbullied. The thing about this theory, though, is the fact that the Jeff image has been popping up 3 years prior to the 4chan post and possibly even earlier, like dating back to like 2004 potentially. So it's more than likely it's not the picture of this supposed Katie. I also could not find any proof of someone who looks like her or with her name that even attempted suicide, never mind even committed. And on top of that, 4chan is just known to like make up these kinds of stories. So who knows if someone named Katie Robinson actually died this way. But like I said, in this context, I couldn't find any proof that this one was true. Another theory states that the photo originates from a post on 4chan's B forum in late 2004. A girl had posted a picture of herself asking for compliments. Users who saw the photo took turns editing the photo, and, it being 4chan, they all kind of got worse with each one. This theory also at least lines up with the timeline. So, this post came about in, I saw November of 2004, saw December of 2004, but late 2004. And then it showed up on various sites in July. So it does line up. The last theory comes from the supposed original author of the quote unquote real original version, Sezier. Depending on the source, it'll tell you that he stated it was originally a picture of a white mask with googly eyes that he edited for the story. Again, I couldn't find an actual original upload of Sezier's video, so I can't confirm exactly when he published his version of the story, but it was in a video that he published rather than an actual text format. So I can't confirm what he's saying is true. The earliest video I could find from him is, and I don't even know if it's from him personally, was 2015. And that is 3 years after the famous one was published, the famous story was published, and 10 years after the most widely acknowledged first posting of this photo was posted. So I'm not entirely sure. So, yeah, final thoughts. I personally don't think that this one fully holds up. I can see it's almost, I can see how a child might think that the famous original version might hold up in a child's perspective, and it definitely is, in terms of like creepypasta, it's definitely like a classic, so it definitely deserves its place in like the creepypasta Hall of Fame. But it, as the story itself, as far as this version goes that I read last week, doesn't hold up as well in terms of storytelling. So tell me what you guys think. Do you think this story holds up? Where do you think the photo originally came from? If I have anyone who might remember anything from like the super early days of the internet listening, like, do you remember it popping up before any of the stories popped up? Like, let me know. Hit me up. And if you do have, if I get enough people reaching out to me talking about this, I will make a part 3 to Jeff the Killer. But yeah, for now, that is it for Jeff the Killer. I will be back next week with, I think I might be doing an iceberg again next week, but we will see. We'll see where the week takes me. So yeah, I will see you guys next week, hopefully also with better audio. So stay safe and be creepy out there.